You are currently paying a voluntary tax that is silently draining your bank account every single month. It is not a government levy or a hidden bank fee, yet it is the primary reason you feel stuck while others seem to accelerate. Most people spend their entire lives working to fund a lifestyle designed to impress people who aren't even paying attention. What if the very things you think are symbols of success are actually the chains keeping you broke? There is a specific category of spending that acts as a financial parasite, disguised as a necessity for your social standing. If you don't identify and eliminate this invisible drain today, you will continue to trade your freedom for a fleeting moment of external validation. This cycle didn't start with you, it's a survival mechanism hardwired into our DNA from thousands of years ago. In the early days of human history, being part of the tribe meant the difference between life and death. Your social standing wasn't just about pride, it was your insurance policy against the harsh realities of the wild. Fast forward to the modern era, and that primal urge to belong has been hijacked by a consumerist culture. We no longer signal our value through strength or resourcefulness, but through the logos on our chests and the cars in our driveways. We have replaced genuine community connection with a shallow competition for visual dominance. Look around and you will see a society built on the foundation of keeping up with the Joneses. This invisible pressure forces the average person to allocate their hardest-earned dollars toward depreciating assets. You are taught from a young age that a bigger house and a newer car are the ultimate markers of a life well lived. The psychological weight of this expectation is immense because it creates a constant state of comparison. Every time you scroll through social media, you are bombarded with the highlight reels of people who are likely drowning in debt. You feel a phantom itch to match their perceived success, even if it means sacrificing your long-term security. This is where the status tax begins to take its toll on your net worth. It is the premium you pay for the brand name over the utility, and the interest you accrue on lifestyle inflation. While you focus on the monthly payment, the truly wealthy are focusing on the opportunity cost of that capital. Historically, wealth was quiet and reserved for those who owned the means of production. Today, the illusion of wealth has become a mass-market product sold to the working class. Companies spend billions of dollars to convince you that your identity is tied to what you own rather than what you produce. You might believe you are making these choices for yourself, but you are actually following a script written by advertisers. They have mastered the art of making luxury feel like a necessity and frugality feel like a failure. This manipulation ensures that the majority of people stay on a treadmill, running faster just to stay in the same place. Understanding this historical and psychological trap is the first step toward breaking your financial chains. You must realize that the system is designed to keep you spending so that you never have enough to invest. Once you see the strings being pulled, you can finally choose to stop playing a game that was rigged against you from the start. The roots of this behavior stretch back decades to the post-war era of mass production. Companies realized that once basic needs were met, they had to manufacture desire to keep the economy growing. This shift transformed us from a society of savers into a culture of relentless consumers. In the past, you only had to keep up with your immediate neighbors on the same street. Now, social media has expanded your neighborhood to include the entire world and its top 1%. You are constantly comparing your behind-the-scenes reality with everyone else's highlight reel. This drive to consume isn't just about greed, it's a primal survival instinct gone wrong. Our ancestors needed to fit into the tribe to survive, and today, we use brands to signal our status within the group. We buy things we don't need to prove we belong to a social class we haven't actually reached yet. To fuel this endless cycle, the financial industry introduced the concept of easy credit and monthly installments. They made it possible for you to own the future today, but at the cost of your long-term independence. You are essentially borrowing from your future self to pay for a temporary ego boost. While the price of goods rises, the social cost of living rises even faster. We call it lifestyle creep, but it is actually a calculated expansion of what is considered a standard life. What used to be a luxury for the elite is now marketed as a basic requirement for a decent existence. Every dollar you spend on this status tax is a dollar that could have been working for you in the markets. Compounding interest is the most powerful force in the universe, but it only works if you have the discipline to leave your capital alone. By choosing the appearance of wealth, you are actively sabotaging the reality of it. But the true crisis isn't just a low bank balance, it is the moment you realize you have become a stranger to your own future. You wake up one day and see that your most productive years have been traded for a collection of objects that are currently losing value. This sudden clarity acts as a cold shower, washing away the delusions of consumer comfort. You look at your high-end gadgets and designer clothes, but all you see is the time you spent earning them. Each item represents hours, days, or months of your life that you can never get back. This is the brutal math of the status tax that no one warned you about during your prime. The breaking point arrives when you discover the secret that the people you were trying to impress are actually drowning in the same sea of debt. Their luxury cars are leased, their vacations are financed, and their smiles are a mask for financial terror. You have been competing in a race where the prize is a gold-plated cage. Suddenly, the shiny storefronts and targeted ads no longer feel like opportunities for joy. They start to look like traps designed to keep you in a perpetual state of servitude to the system. This shift in perception is irreversible because you can no longer unsee the invisible chains wrapped around your wallet. You begin to feel a deep, unsettling friction between the person you are and the person the world expects you to be. The urge to buy something new to feel better is met with a sharp, internal resistance that demands a different path. This is the internal war that precedes every major financial transformation in a person's life. You start calculating the real cost of your lifestyle, not in dollars, but in years of freedom you have surrendered. That monthly car payment isn't just $500, it is the seed of $1 million retirement fund that you just threw away. The weight of this realization is heavy, but it is the only thing that can set you free. From this moment forward, the old rules of social survival no longer apply to your decision-making process. You decide to stop paying the status tax, even if it means being misunderstood by those who are still trapped in the cycle. Being the only one without the latest upgrade becomes a badge of honor rather than a mark of shame. You are now standing at a threshold where your desire for true wealth finally outweighs your need for temporary approval. The path ahead requires a radical rejection of everything you were taught about success and identity. It is time to burn the script and start building a life that is actually yours to keep. The realization hits you like a cold wave: you have been working for a ghost. Every hour of overtime and every stressful deadline was sacrificed to maintain a facade that is now crumbling under its own weight. This is the moment where the comfort of the lie becomes more painful than the harshness of the truth. You look at your bank statement and realize the math simply doesn't add up for your freedom. The high-end subscriptions, the financed car, and the premium lifestyle are not assets, they are liabilities masquerading as progress. A switch flips in your mind, and you finally see these objects for what they are: anchors holding you back from the deep ocean of real opportunity. The real crisis begins when you start saying no to the expectations of your social circle. Friends will notice when you stop showing up to expensive dinners or skip the latest tech release, and their judgment will feel like a physical weight. You are no longer playing their game, and that makes you a threat to their carefully constructed illusions. This friction is the fire that forges your new financial identity. You are choosing the quiet satisfaction of a growing portfolio over the loud, empty noise of a luxury lifestyle. There is no going back to the person you were before, because once you see the bars of the cage, you can never be comfortable inside it again. As you step out of that cage, your first instinct is to slash every expense in sight. You cancel the gym membership you never use and stop the daily $5 coffee habit, feeling a surge of temporary power. But you quickly realize that cutting the fat is easy, while cutting into the bone feels like a surgical strike on your identity. The real friction begins when your inner circle notices the shift in your behavior. When you decline the invitation to that overpriced brunch or the weekend getaway, the air in the room changes instantly. Your friends don't see a person seeking freedom, they see a person who is becoming boring or cheap, and their subtle jabs start to sting. You try to explain your new philosophy, but your words often fall on deaf ears. People who are still paying the status tax feel judged by your frugality, even if you never say a word about their spending. Their insecurity manifests as pressure, pushing you to just live a little and return to the comfortable herd. Then comes the first major test of your resolve, the unexpected emergency or the must-have social event. You find yourself staring at your savings, tempted to dip in just this once to keep up appearances. This is the moment you discover that financial discipline isn't a one-time decision, but a grueling series of hourly negotiations with your own ego. You start noticing the hidden leaks in your life that go far beyond a simple coffee habit. As you audit your bank statements, you find a graveyard of forgotten subscriptions and automatic payments for services you haven't touched in months. Each one is a tiny vampire, draining your future wealth while you were sleeping in the comfort of convenience. The psychological withdrawal from the new purchase high is more intense than you ever anticipated. Without the hit of dopamine from a shopping bag or a delivery box, your days start to feel gray and uninspired. You realize you weren't just buying products, you were buying temporary escapes from a reality you hadn't yet learned to love. You look at your old self through the eyes of the skeptics who surround you. They tell you that you only live once and that you can't take your money with you to the grave. These are the secondary characters in your story, playing the role of the anchors, trying to pull you back into the sea of mediocrity you just escaped. This initial phase of resistance reveals a terrifying truth: The status tax is not just a financial burden, it is a social contract. Breaking it means renegotiating every relationship and every habit you have built over the last decade. You are no longer just managing money, you are fighting a war for the right to define your own value. You start by cutting the obvious expenses, thinking that raw willpower is enough to rewrite your financial destiny. But the first time you decline an expensive invitation, the resulting silence from your social circle feels like a deafening rejection. You quickly realize that many of your relationships were built on a foundation of shared spending rather than genuine connection. Your friends and family often become the unintentional gatekeepers of your old life, disguised as voices of reason. They might mock your new habits or call you cheap because your discipline shines a harsh light on their own lack of financial control. Their discomfort isn't about your choices, it's a reflection of their fear that you might actually break free while they remain trapped. You soon discover that the status tax has deep, invisible roots in your daily routine that you never even questioned before. It's the premium brand of coffee you buy to feel productive and the high-end gym membership you keep just to maintain a certain image. Every small decision becomes a psychological battleground where your old ego fights to survive against your new vision of freedom. This friction leads to a profound discovery: you aren't just fighting a budget, you are deconstructing a lifetime of consumerist brainwashing. You begin to see that the system doesn't just want your money, it requires your total compliance to keep the wheels of the status machine turning. The deeper you go, the more you realize that the ultimate barrier to your wealth isn't the economy, but the person looking back at you in the mirror. That reflection in the mirror is your most dangerous opponent because it knows exactly which buttons to press to keep you small. It whispers that you deserve a reward for your hard work, using your exhaustion as a justification for another useless purchase. This is the moment you must decide if you want the temporary relief of a shopping spree or the permanent power of financial sovereignty. The system has spent billions of dollars convincing you that treating yourself is a form of self-care. In reality, it is often a form of self-sabotage that keeps you tethered to a job you hate and a lifestyle you can barely afford. True self-care isn't a new pair of shoes, it is the peace of mind that comes from knowing you are no longer a slave to your next paycheck. You must confront the uncomfortable truth that society rewards the appearance of wealth while punishing the actual accumulation of it. People will applaud your new car because it validates their own debt-fueled choices, but they will ignore your growing investment account because it is invisible. You are being asked to choose between the applause of the crowd and the silent growth of your freedom. Every dollar you spend on the status tax is a soldier you have sent to die in a war that isn't yours. That money could have been working for you, compounding in the background and buying back your time while you sleep. Instead, it is sitting in someone else's pocket, funding their dreams while yours remain on a shelf gathering dust. We often use luxury items as a psychological armor to hide our insecurities from a world we perceive as judgmental. We believe that if we look the part, we will eventually become the part, but the math of wealth doesn't care about your outfit. Real wealth is what you don't see, consisting of the assets, the equity, and the options that exist behind the scenes of a modest life. The middle class is the primary target of this invisible tax because they have just enough money to be dangerous to their own future. They are caught in a perpetual cycle of lifestyle inflation, where every raise is immediately swallowed by a bigger house or a better lease. This is the trap of being comfortable enough to never leave, but never wealthy enough to be truly free. To move forward, you have to kill the version of yourself that cares about being perceived as successful. This is a painful ego death that requires you to be okay with being the poorest person in the room by outward standards. When you stop trying to prove your worth through your possessions, you gain a level of psychological leverage that most people will never understand. This isn't just about saving money, it is about reclaiming your cognitive bandwidth from the marketing machines that own your attention. Every time you resist a trend, you are taking back a piece of your mind that was previously rented out to corporate interests. The war for your wealth is being fought in the small, quiet moments when you choose your future self over your current cravings. You must confront the uncomfortable truth that your current lifestyle is often a predatory loan taken against your older self. Every luxury you buy today to satisfy a temporary impulse is a brick stolen from the foundation of your future freedom. It is a zero-sum game where your desire for immediate validation remains the primary enemy of your long-term security. Society has conditioned you to believe that spending is a sign of power, when in reality, it is often a sign of powerlessness. True financial power is the ability to walk away from a bad deal, a toxic job, or a shallow social circle without the fear of ruin. By refusing to pay the status tax, you are building a fortress of autonomy that no marketing campaign can ever breach. The trap is designed to make you feel that enough is a moving target that always stays just out of reach. You are told that the next upgrade will finally bring the peace of mind you crave, but it only brings a higher threshold for dissatisfaction. Breaking this cycle requires an analytical detachment from the objects that used to define your identity and your worth. Real wealth is silent, invisible, and deeply boring to those who live for the applause of others. It exists in the spreadsheets and compound interest accounts that no one sees, rather than in the driveway or the closet. When you finally stop performing for an audience that isn't paying attention, you start building a legacy that actually belongs to you. You've built your silent fortress and embraced the boring reality of compound interest, yet the silence is starting to feel like a void. You followed every rule, cut every leak, and killed your ego, but the promised land of freedom still feels like a distant mirage. It seems that even after winning the war against your impulses, the victory tastes like ashes in your mouth. The exhaustion of constant vigilance has finally caught up with you, leaving you drained and questioning the entire mission. You look at your growing bank balance and realize it's just a number on a screen that can't buy back the laughter you've missed. The discipline that was supposed to set you free has become a new kind of cage, one built of spreadsheets instead of debt. Your social circle has moved on, leaving you in a vacuum of your own making where no one cares about your financial integrity. You sit in your modest home, surrounded by the ghosts of the experiences you declined in the name of a future that hasn't arrived yet. The isolation is a heavy price to pay for a crown of thorns made of saved pennies and missed opportunities. You begin to suspect that the gurus lied to you about the timeline of this transformation. The math is cold and slow, and the years required to reach true sovereignty feel like a life sentence of deprivation. You've successfully avoided the status tax, but in doing so, you've taxed your very soul until there is nothing left but resentment. Looking back at the people you once pitied, you see them smiling in their leased cars and laughing over their expensive dinners. You wonder if their ignorance was actually bliss and if your awakening was just a sophisticated way to make yourself miserable. Perhaps the status tax was simply the entry fee for a life worth living, and you've chosen a path of empty virtue. You decide to stop fighting the current and accept that you are human, with human needs for validation and belonging. The experiment in radical frugality has reached its natural end, proving that you cannot live on bread and discipline alone. You prepare to step back into the world you left, ready to pay the price just to feel a sense of connection again. This is where most people stop, concluding that the price of wealth is simply too high for the average heart to bear. You pack away your goals and your visions of freedom, settling for a life of comfortable mediocrity and predictable cycles. The story of your escape ends here, not with a bang of success, but with the quiet whimper of a dream deferred. But as you reach for the door to return to your old life, a chilling realization stops you cold in your tracks. You've been focusing so hard on what you were spending that you completely missed the massive, structural leak that no budget can ever fix. There is a final, devastating layer to the status tax that you haven't even begun to address, and it's the reason you're still standing still. This leak is the fundamental misunderstanding of how your time is actually being harvested by the very institutions you trust. You've spent years perfecting the art of saving, but you've neglected the science of scaling your own value. You are playing a defensive game in a world that only rewards aggressive, strategic growth. The crushing weight of this realization makes your previous efforts feel like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. You feel a wave of genuine despair as you look at the math and realize that at your current rate, true freedom is still decades away. It seems the mountain is simply too high to climb, and your legs are already beginning to give out. You are tempted to just walk away and accept the quiet life of the working poor, convinced that the dream was a lie all along. The silence of your bank account feels like a final judgment on your potential and your worth as a provider. It is the darkest moment of the journey, where the urge to quit is no longer a whisper, but a deafening roar. Yet, in the middle of this perceived failure, you notice a pattern you had previously ignored in the lives of the truly wealthy. You realize that the status tax wasn't just about the things you bought, but about the way you were taught to think about your labor. The final layer of the trap is finally visible, and it's not just about how much you spend, but how you've been tricked into trading your finite life for a currency that is designed to lose its value. The realization hits you like a physical blow. You haven't just been overspending, you've been underselling. You were so busy cutting coupons that you forgot to build a machine that prints them. The status tax isn't just a drain on your wallet, it's a tax on your very capacity to create leverage. The secret the wealthy understand is that you cannot save your way to true sovereignty using only your own labor. While you were focused on the defense of saving, the winners were playing the offensive ownership. They don't trade their hours for dollars, they trade their vision for assets that grow while they sleep. The status tax was the distraction designed to keep your eyes on the ground instead of the horizon. By making you obsess over the brand of your watch, the system ensured you would never notice who actually owns the clock. You were playing a game of checkers in a world where the rules are written in grandmaster chess. To break the cycle, you must stop being a consumer of trends and start being a producer of value. This is the moment you stop buying the lie that your worth is tied to your consumption. Your real wealth begins the second you decide that your time is too precious to be sold to the highest bidder for a shiny toy. The psychological armor you were wearing wasn't protecting you, it was weighing you down during the climb. When you shed the need for external validation, you suddenly have the energy to build something that actually lasts. Freedom isn't the ability to buy anything you want, it's the power to say no to everything you don't need. This invisible tax is the price of admission to a society that wants you compliant, predictable, and perpetually broke. By refusing to pay it, you become a glitch in their matrix of consumerism. You are no longer a target for their marketing, but a sovereign entity with the capital to dictate your own terms. The math of wealth finally clicks into place as you see the bridge between your current struggle and your future empire. It's not about the car you didn't buy, it's about the freedom that money bought instead. You are finally moving from the spectator stands of the economy into the owner's box. The fear that once paralyzed you is replaced by a cold, calculated clarity about what must be done next. You are no longer guessing or hoping, you are executing a strategy that the status seekers can't even perceive. The trap is open, and for the first time in your life, you are actually walking through the exit. This exit leads to a reality where you stop buying the lie that your worth is tied to your consumption. You finally understand that the primary thing you must stop buying is the desperate need for external validation from people who are also drowning in debt. By refusing to purchase their approval, you reclaim the capital and the mental energy necessary to fund your own liberation. The secret to the empire you are building lies in the transition from being a consumer of status to a producer of value. You are no longer trading your life force for objects that lose half their value the moment you touch them. Instead, you are funneling every available resource into assets that work harder than you ever could, creating a self-sustaining loop of compounding growth. The status tax was never just about the money, it was a tax on your potential and your future autonomy. Now that you've stopped paying it, you possess the ultimate psychological advantage over a society that is perpetually distracted by the next shiny object. You have traded the temporary high of a purchase for the permanent power of having options that others can't even imagine. All the elements of your struggle have converged into a single, unbreakable truth: wealth is the ability to say no. You have resolved the conflict between your ego and your bank account, choosing the silent strength of equity over the loud weakness of display. The journey wasn't about deprivation, but about the radical realization that your freedom is the only luxury worth owning. The silence of your success becomes your greatest asset as you watch the world continue its frantic race toward nothingness. You no longer feel the sting of being overlooked because you are too busy measuring your life in milestones of autonomy rather than receipts of consumption. This new foundation isn't just a financial cushion, it is the bedrock of a legacy built on substance instead of shadows. Your influence now stems from your results and your character, not the logos stitched into your clothing. By opting out of the status game, you have gained the rare ability to move through the world with total transparency and zero pretension. You are finally living a life that is as good as it looks on paper, free from the crushing weight of maintaining a facade. But as you master the art of keeping your wealth, a new and more sophisticated challenge begins to emerge on the horizon. Simply having capital is not enough if you don't understand the shifting landscape of the global economy and how it threatens to devalue your hard-earned freedom. The game of preservation is over, and the high-stakes era of strategic multiplication has officially begun. You've stopped paying the status tax, but you are now standing at the edge of a much deeper rabbit hole involving the very nature of money itself. If you think you've seen the full extent of the system's traps, you aren't prepared for the truth about how your savings are being eroded by forces you can't even see. The real question isn't how much you've saved, but how you will protect it from the invisible theft that is coming next.